I brought my 8-month pregnant belly to my in-laws' Christmas Eve party early, hoping to surprise them. But just as the door opened a small crack, I heard my husband shouting from the living room, "Jessica, my love, is pregnant with a baby boy." His whole family cheered and raised their glasses in celebration. I quietly walked away, and 3 months later, they all collapsed at the feet of me and my daughter. My name is Ava Sterling, 28 years old, and I built the Paw and Heart Veterinary Clinic in Detroit not for profit, but to save suffering animals, fulfilling my mother's dying wish. That Christmas Eve, I left the clinic earlier than usual, driving my SUV through the quiet streets. I was 8 months pregnant, my belly already huge, yet I still carefully stepped up the porch, eager to surprise my husband and his family before the Christmas party in the garden house, the very home I had let them stay in. Everyone thought I was living the perfect life. 28, about to be a mother, working a job I loved, and most importantly, surrounded by a kind in-law family. But the moment my hand touched the back doorknob, that entire illusion shattered. The door wasn't even halfway open when I heard Jackson, my husband, shout in the brightly lit living room filled with confetti, "Jessica, my love, it's a boy!" The whole family cheered and clapped so loudly the Christmas lights trembled. I stood there, only a few steps away, my hands instinctively cradling my belly, my heart clenched and clenched again. No one knew I had come home. No one even thought to hide it from me. Before I could catch my breath, Jackson's mother, Carol, asked excitedly, "When is Ava signing the POA?" Jackson answered, without a hint of hesitation, "Tonight. I already slipped a sleep aid into her water. It's harmless for the baby, just makes her tired. Sleepy enough to sign the tax deduction form. It's actually a full POA." My hands trembled so badly I had to brace myself against the wall. This wasn't just betrayal. They wanted my assets, my right to make decisions about my life, even the rights to the child kicking gently inside me, as if warning me to leave immediately. I stepped back, then another step, slow and silent. I shut the door behind me. The icy Detroit air slapped my face like a wake-up call. I drove into the thick snow, tears streaming down, one hand resting on my belly as if to soothe my baby. "I'm getting us out of here. Tonight." Snow smothered the windshield, and through the relentless wiper blades, I had a strange moment of clarity. I needed a cover story so Jackson wouldn't suspect anything. I pulled over, wiped my tears, and sent him a text. "Emergency case, 5-month-old pup got poisoned, licking de-icer. I have to monitor it at the clinic. I'll be home tomorrow." The message read, "Sent." So clean, so simple, no one would ever imagine the truth behind it. As the car rolled on, memories of my childhood returned like an old reel of film. I grew up in Indian Village in an ultra-wealthy family. My father was a major contractor with urban and high-rise projects spread across the north. My mother was the CFO managing his cash flow. Jackson's parents had once been close friends with mine. They went bankrupt during the 2009 margin call crash in stocks and vacation real estate, and had to flee back to Mississippi to live off relatives. When I was 15, my parents died in a crane accident at a construction site in Warren. I had no tears left. 2 weeks later, Jackson's family reappeared in Detroit, renting the house directly across from ours, bringing food over daily, saying they would take care of me like their own. Jackson transferred to my high school and always protected me from bullies who targeted the orphan girl I believed them. I believed them enough to let them fully into my life. At 18, I inherited everything: a grand Tudor house, 2 penthouses, a garden house, which I later let Jackson's family live in when they claimed they were about to move back to Mississippi, 2 suburban homes, and a massive trust fund. I studied veterinary medicine at Wayne State. Jackson pursued business management. We fell in love when I was 19 and married 4 years later, just after I graduated, 6 months after our wedding. Jackson convinced me to let him manage all the properties. "You focus on saving animals. Let me handle the money." I agreed and confidently handed over management to the man with a 4.0 GPA. But I insisted all rental income go directly to the Detroit Animal Care and Control Shelter Foundation, as my mother had wished. Now, on that freezing Christmas Eve, I realized all those years of kindness might have been part of a long con. And I understood one thing. From the moment I quietly stepped away from that garden house, my life, and my unborn child's, would never be the same. But before everything collapsed, I would make them face the truth. The next morning, while Christmas snow still lay thick outside the Renaissance Center, I stepped out of the car with lead-heavy legs. The sign, Harrison and Associates, Family Law, reflected faintly off the green-tinted glass, and I was suddenly reminded of something my parents used to tell me when I was little. If you ever have legal trouble, go to Harrison first. He's the one we trust completely. Back then, I was too young to understand. But now, 8 months pregnant and heartbroken, I finally grasped the full weight of those words. When I entered the conference room, Harrison, a man in his 60s with sharp eyes and a calm, deep voice, stood up as if he had sensed something was terribly wrong. "Ava, are you okay?" I sat down, one hand on my belly, and took a deep breath. "No. And I think what I'm about to tell you is worse than you expect." I recounted every detail of Christmas night, the cheers when Jessica was announced to be pregnant with a boy, Jackson's words about the POA, the drugged water he planned to give me. Every word I said felt like a knife to my chest, but Harrison simply listened, took notes, and never interrupted. When I finished, he set his pen down. "Ava, I have to say something. It's about an old story, but I'm afraid it's the root of all this." I looked up. In 2008 to 2009, Harrison said slowly, "Jackson's father, Douglas Sterling, and your father, John Martinez, co-invested in a real estate project in northern Michigan. Then the market crashed. Douglas was over-leveraged with margin loans and got hit with back-to-back margin calls. He was forced to liquidate everything to avoid a second bankruptcy." I squinted. I knew they lost money, but I never knew why they came back to Detroit right after my parents died. Harrison nodded gently and opened an old folder he had already prepared. When Douglas was forced to exit, land prices plummeted. No one wanted to buy, except your father. He bought out Douglas's shares and saved the project and... Harrison paused. 18 months later, when the market recovered, the value of that land increased 12-fold. I sat frozen. "You mean, my father saved the project, but Douglas felt like he was robbed right before success?" "He didn't just feel it," Harrison said, his voice tightening. "Your father-in-law saw it as a life stolen. He told people, 'The Martinez family took my future.' And Ava, that resentment never left. It shaped every decision, every action, even how they treated you." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It explained why they were so kind to me after my parents died, why they insisted on taking care of me like their own, why Jackson so easily convinced me to hand over property management. All those scattered questions suddenly formed a complete, poisonous picture. "From now on," Harrison said, "we need to find out what they've taken from you, and you need to know what Jackson's really done." I swallowed hard. "I want a full investigation of the money. I want to know who Jessica is and how much Jackson has funneled to her." Harrison said nothing more. He stepped to the window and made a call. "Lucas, I have a new case. Urgent. It's for my client." He returned and placed a slip of paper in front of me. Lucas.investigation at. Send him everything you're suspicious of. Everything you want uncovered. Lucas is the best when it comes to financial deception. You'll work remotely at first. I nodded, opened my laptop, and connected to Harrison's office Wi-Fi on-screen. The draft email came together quickly. Suspicious transfers, Jackson's movements, Jessica, unaccounted properties, and strange payments I'd never seen in our joint account. "Within minutes," Lucas replied. The email was short and professional. "Received. I'll start this afternoon. Expect first report in 72 hours. I stared at those words. There was no cold-eyed detective stepping into the room. No tense meeting in suits. Just a sentence on a screen. And yet it felt like someone had handed me armor. "That's it," Harrison said, voice firm. "You're not fighting this alone anymore. Let Lucas dig into everything." I closed my laptop, rested my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter kick gently in response to my inner turbulence. In that moment, I knew one thing. The battle had truly begun. And this time, I had allies. 3 days later, just as Lucas promised, I received the email at 6:12 a.m. I hadn't even made my chamomile tea yet when the alert, "Report Jessica Hartley, preliminary findings," blinked on my screen. I opened it instantly, my heart pounding louder than the heater humming in the living room. The first line hit me like a lightning bolt. 90% of Jessica's Instagram content is AI generated. Lucas included screenshots. Jessica playing golf at Pebble Beach, standing next to a McLaren, beaming on a Miami yacht, even a Reels clip of her seated in business class en route to Dubai. All flagged in red, compared against AI content detectors. The room spun ever so slightly. So the heiress Jackson proudly introduced to his family was nothing but a hollow shell built with apps. Lucas continued. Jessica met Jackson in a Facebook golf group. She told him she'd just fought with her parents, ran away from her 6-bedroom mansion, and was staying in hotels temporarily. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound that hurt more than crying. I pictured Jackson sitting there, eyes lit up, believing every word. Believing he'd been chosen by a high society princess. Believing she needed him, believing it enough to betray his 8 months pregnant wife. I scrolled down to the next part of the report, and my hands turned ice cold. Jackson used rental income to support Jessica, a penthouse in Capitol Park, luxury car service fees, monthly spending card, all transferred from the Detroit Animal Care Foundation Fund. I frowned. The full name of the City Rescue Fund is Detroit Animal Care and Control Shelter Foundation. But what Lucas sent me was only half. I dragged the cursor to the footnote. The Detroit Animal Care Foundation does not exist. It's a fake entity Jackson created 5 years ago to receive property rental income from the banks. Not a single dollar has gone to the real fund in 5 years. My hands dropped to my sides, the warmth drained from my body. What I intended for stray dogs and cats, medicine, food, winter shelters, had been funneled into keeping a woman alive whose whole existence was stitched together by AI. I heard baby Hope's faint heartbeat inside me and felt a tightness rise in my throat. You stole from stray animals. My voice escaped, quiet but razor sharp. Then don't expect mercy. I shut the laptop slowly. The rage inside me was no longer that of a betrayed wife, but of someone who had been deceived for far too long. And I knew this was just the tip of the iceberg. On the evening of the first day of the new year, I was sitting on the sofa reading an old prenatal guide my mother had left behind, when Jackson entered the room, coat in hand, and spoke more gently than usual. Hey babe, my cousin invited us and my parents to a New Year's dinner in Bloomfield Hills. They really want to see you. You should come. I closed the book and offered a thin smile. I don't think I can go. The baby's getting big, and all the moving around is uncomfortable. Jackson nodded far too quickly. Right, you should rest. All that noise isn't good for you and the baby. But inside, one thought cut through like ice. If I stay, he'll be free to see Jessica. And I'll have an empty house to install the cameras. The moment his car engine faded in the driveway, I jumped up, grabbed my coat, and took the bag of equipment Harrison gave me. 2 cameras disguised as air purifiers, 1 mic hidden in a flower vase, and a mini Wi-Fi router. New Year's snow was falling lightly as I opened the garden house. The same home Douglas and Carol, Jackson's parents, had lived in for the past 10 years, with their rehearsed expressions of gratitude inside. It was dark and eerily silent. I placed the first camera on the TV shelf in the living room, the second in the dining room. The mic was tucked into a ceramic vase in front of the fireplace. Carol's favorite tea spot. 15 minutes later, I was gone like I'd never been there. Back home, I curled up on the sofa, pulled a blanket over my belly, and opened my iPad to monitor the camera feeds. 3 hours later, the motion alert blinked. Jackson walked in, threw his coat on a chair, his face tense, a far cry from someone who'd just left a cheerful New Year's party. He made a call immediately. Why is my account frozen? I already booked the tea time. The golf club employee's voice came through, cold and clear. Mr. Jackson, your account has been suspended due to 4 months of unpaid membership dues, plus food service fees and overspending charges. We can't extend more credit. Jackson slammed the table. I'll pay. Just need Ava to sign the POA by next week. Just sign the damn thing. I stared at the iPad. No pain, just a chilling confirmation. Every suspicion I had was real. Hope kicked gently inside me. Reacting to the tension in the air, I muted the feed, set the iPad down. The flickering screen cast shadows across the wall, like the rhythm of my own pulse, and I knew with absolute clarity this was only the beginning of the fall of Jackson and the entire Sterling family. I closed my iPad and knew it was time to drop the bigger bait. The next morning, after Jackson left early to play golf with his buddies, I sent him a long message, attaching photos of injured dogs from a wildfire. A partner clinic in California urgently needs help. I want to fly out for 3 days. The baby and I are fine. Jackson called back almost instantly, his voice trying to sound caring, but laced with glee. Yeah, go ahead. That work is your calling. Just take care of yourself. He had no idea I was only 10 minutes from home. My real destination, the Weston Book Cadillac, Detroit. Room 1709. Just 2 hours later, I received a motion-detected alert. I opened the laptop. Jackson had entered his parents' house, Douglas and Carol's, the one they had treated as theirs for a decade. Carol walked over immediately, her voice sharp as ever. What's wrong with you, Jackson? Why haven't you gotten the POA yet? Douglas slammed the table, his voice like stone. It's been 10 years. Are you going to let everything slip through our fingers? You've spent too much already. That POA has to be signed by next week. Jessica, legs crossed, twirled a Cartier bracelet I'd never seen before. I'm not involved, I just enjoy what Jackson gives me. She held up her wrist, unaware the camera was catching every pixel. I watched Jackson pull out his laptop, opening the fake POA disguised as a property tax reduction form. Just knock her out like we did at Christmas one signature, and we have it all. Carol nodded repeatedly, like she was witnessing the greatest triumph of her life. Jessica burst out laughing, flaunting her Chanel purse. He bought this with money from that animal rescue thing. Jackson replied casually, Detroit Animal Care Foundation. My breath caught in my throat. 5 years of stolen funds, thousands of dogs and cats left without medicine, food. All to buy luxury for a woman made of AI photos. I opened the cloud tab, uploaded the footage, and set it to auto backup every 10 minutes. No one could delete this now. I closed the laptop and looked out from room 1709 at the Weston Book Cadillac, Detroit. The city light spilled through the glass in a cold, pale streak across the floor. I placed my hand on my belly. Hope kicked, as if to encourage me. They've confessed everything, baby. Now it's Mama's turn. I stood, took a deep breath, and stepped fully into the heart of the war. I hadn't even sat down when my phone buzzed. A new email from Lucas. Report number 2, priority. I opened it instantly, the screen's light casting across my face in the dim hotel room. The first line stopped my breath midway. Jessica took a NIPT test at Lakeside Medical 3 days ago, I scrolled. The test result came up. Patient ID, fetal age, and the DNA conclusion cut like a cold knife. Paternity, not consistent with alleged father, Jackson Sterling. I didn't flinch. I didn't rage. I didn't shake like I did when I first heard Jackson yelling, Jessica is pregnant with my son. I felt a terrifying calm wash over me. Lucas included photos. Jessica standing in front of Motel 18, a rundown building in suburban Dearborn, known for illicit affairs. Next image, Jessica walking out with a man in a black hoodie and baseball cap pulled low. His identity confirmed in the final line of the report. Father, Tyler Mills. Occupation, DJ at Midnight Alley Bar. I leaned back, hand resting on my belly. Hope gave another gentle kick, as if she too wasn't surprised. So Jessica had been seeing her ex the whole time. While Jackson believed he was going to be a father, I thought I'd laugh. But instead, I felt one thing sink in deeply. They deserve each other. I moved all the files into a folder labeled Climax, and activated dual-layer encryption. At that moment, my phone rang. Harrison. I put him on speaker, looking out through the glass of the 17th floor, the lights of Detroit stretching into pale golden lines. You read the report? Yes. The baby isn't Jackson's. Harrison was silent for a few seconds, enough for me to hear the rustle of paperwork on his end. His voice dropped into deep calculation. Then the game has changed. Now we don't need to expose them. We make them confess. I placed my hand on my belly. Hope kicked harder, as if agreeing. I'm ready, I said. Harrison responded with the calm of someone who'd seen the endgame long before. It begins tonight, Ava. I set the phone down, standing before the window, the city sprawling below me. A strange calm swept through me, the kind that only comes to those who know they're finally winning. The war had tipped in my favor, not by luck, but by truth. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel at 6 a.m., dragging my suitcase to my SUV. Detroit was still veiled in morning fog, matching the fatigue I deliberately wore on my face, as if I'd just flown back from California. When I opened the door and stepped into the house, Jackson came rushing over, trying to look attentive. You're back? You look exhausted. Let me get you some orange juice. He turned his back, fumbling in the kitchen. In that moment, I set down my suitcase, walked quietly to the sofa, and slipped his phone into my hand. He always left it unlocked at home, like a man certain his wife would never doubt him. I opened messages and typed Jessica's number. Meet me at Meadowbrook Cafe at 2 p.m. urgent. I deleted the message from Jackson's phone, returned it to its spot, and sat calmly across from him that afternoon at 1:45 p.m. I arrived at Meadowbrook, a cozy cafe in Midtown, where sunlight streamed through the glass, painting soft gold across the wooden tables. I wore the mini-camera earpiece Harrison had provided, adjusting my hair to conceal it. I sat in a quiet corner, back against the wall, hand on my belly to calm Hope, 2:03 p.m. Jessica walked in. Her eyes scanned the cafe, looking for Jackson, until they landed on me. She froze, lips trembling. Ava? I motioned for her to sit, no raised voice. No fury. Just a chill quiet, the kind I hadn't known I could possess. Here's your NIPT result, I said, placing the folder on the table, along with photos of you and Tyler Mills at Motel 18. Jessica opened it, eyes twitching at the line, not consistent with alleged father. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Her face turned pale. Jackson said, he said he'd marry me. Her voice cracked. He said I'd get the penthouse, after he got your POA. I didn't comfort her, I didn't respond. I just stared, not with the eyes of a betrayed wife, but with the gaze of someone watching a fool sink into her own pit. The camera captured every tear, every breathless word. Jessica bowed her head, voice barely a whisper. I only pretended. It was all Jackson's plan. Once the penthouse was in my name, I was going to dump him. I don't trust men who cheat on their pregnant wives. A heavy silence fell between us. I opened my bag, pulled out the envelope Harrison had prepared. A civil agreement. I don't care about you and Tyler. I only care about the truth. I want every bit of proof. Messages, audio, transfers, all of it. Jessica nodded rapidly, like someone clinging to her last chance to escape a trap she helped build. I'll give it, all of it. Just please don't press charges. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose the baby. I said nothing, only slid the envelope toward her. In return, I said slowly, each word cutting the air. I won't press charges. But you must sign this. And give me everything. Jessica signed immediately, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the pen. I looked down at my growing belly and gently stroked it. Hope kicked again, stronger this time, as if she was saying, Keep going, Mama. That evening, exactly at 7:30 p.m., Harrison and I pulled up in front of the garden house, the one Douglas and Carol had lived in for 10 years, under a mask of grateful humility. Yellow light spilled from the windows, the clinking of silverware faintly heard inside. No one knew tonight. The history of the Sterling family would shift forever, I opened the door and stepped in. Carol rushed over, placing a hand on her chest like she was genuinely emotional. Ava, oh dear. Jackson said you flew back this morning. Are you and the baby all right? Douglas nodded repeatedly, trying to mold concern into his face. You should avoid such long flights, especially this late in pregnancy. I worry about my grandchild. Jackson emerged from the kitchen, a soft but crooked smile on his lips. You look more radiant than this morning. I'm less worried now. It all sounded like a poorly rehearsed play, one they'd performed too often. And tonight, I was ending the show. I sat at the dining table, placing my laptop on the wood surface. The clack echoed, and all three of them froze. Harrison stepped in behind me, sat at my side, and laid a thick folder on the table, a pre-written verdict. Carol frowned, voice shaking. Excuse me, and you are? Douglas squinted, studying Harrison's face. Wait, I've seen you before, long ago, when I was doing projects with her parents. Jackson stepped back, almost losing his balance. Harrison, why are you here? Ava, what is this? Harrison didn't blink, his voice low and sharp as steel. 20 years ago, I was the legal counsel for the Martinez family, my birth parents. And today, I represent Ava. The air in the room cracked like glass under a hammer. I turned the laptop toward them and hit play. The video played. Jackson's voice rang out clearly. As long as Ava signs the POA, we have it all. Carol shrilled in reply. You need it signed by next week. Douglas slammed the table. 10 years! We can't lose everything now. Jessica flashed a Chanel purse. Money from that dog rescue fund. He said so. Carol dropped her wine glass. It shattered, red spilling like blood. Jackson leapt up, shouting, No! This is a misunderstanding. It's edited. Jessica! I didn't let him finish. I slid the second envelope across the table, my voice so calm it made Carol shiver. And this, you can't deny. Harrison opened it, revealing a thick stack of statements. These are the full rental transactions from Ava's properties. He flipped the first page, voice firm and sharp. Funds were supposed to be deposited into the Detroit Animal Care and Control Shelter Foundation, the real rescue fund. Next page. But for the past 5 years, you've redirected all of it to a fake entity, Detroit Animal Care Foundation, a shell you created. Douglas's jaw dropped. Carol clutched her head. Harrison added another printout. And these are records from that shell entity, to Jessica's account, golf club fees, your secondary credit card, and other personal transactions. He closed each page like sealing a coffin. All transfers in your name, all illegal. Jackson stood frozen. Then I slid out the third envelope. Not legal proof, but the psychological strike to break him. The NIPT results. Photos of Jessica with Tyler at Motel 18. Lucas's report. Jessica's confession. I spoke clearly. This isn't legal evidence. It's just so you know that the one you betrayed me for betrayed you the same way. Jackson stared at the stack, as if the ground beneath him had collapsed. Harrison calmly placed the divorce file at the center of the table. Jackson will forfeit all claims to assets, including property, shared accounts, and any inheritance. He will also repay all embezzled funds from the Detroit Animal Care and Control Shelter. Jackson shook his head in desperation. No! Ava, you can't! I looked straight into his eyes. You drugged my water on Christmas Eve. You lied to me for 10 years. You are unworthy to be the father of my daughter. Harrison placed a pen down. Jackson, sign it, or tomorrow morning, every video, every fraudulent statement, every legal document goes to Detroit PD. The room fell so silent. The clock ticking was audible. Carol sobbed. Douglas stared at the floor like it might swallow him. Jackson trembled, then grabbed the pen. He signed each stroke, tearing apart a decade-long illusion. I stood, closed the file. Thank you, I said coldly, for ending everything yourself. I turned away, hope kicked once, like a final farewell to the past. I turned toward the door, but before I could reach the handle, Douglas jumped up, voice rough with panic. Ava, wait! There's something. I have to explain. I stood still, not turning around. Carol grabbed his sleeve. Don't say it! Don't! But he stepped forward anyway. Douglas's hands trembled as he took out an old set of keys from a drawer, tapping them lightly on the table. Metal on wood, sounding like confession. I went into your office. Jackson's head snapped up. Carol sobbed. Douglas, stop! I turned back, my gaze ice cold. Douglas swallowed, avoiding my eyes. I was just looking for the safe key. I thought it might have your parents' inheritance documents. I didn't look surprised. I only asked one thing. How did you get in? Douglas sighed, defeated. I used your spare key. I pulled a small device from my bag. A USB audio recorder, pressed play. Douglas's voice rang clearly. We have to find that safe key. She must be hiding something. That house was supposed to be ours. Carol screamed, covering her mouth. Jackson looked at his father like he was a stranger. Harrison stood, adjusting his tie, voice solid as steel. Let me be clear. Mr. Douglas, entering Ava's office was a criminal act. Trespassing with intent to steal. She has full audio proof. One phone call and this goes to the authorities tonight. Douglas collapsed into a chair. Carol wept uncontrollably. The entire room felt like it had been doused in ice. I turned off the recorder, slipped it back into my bag. I won't press charges. As long as from tonight forward, no one from this family dares disturb me, my child, or touch any of my assets again. I paused, staring at all three of them. I will not show mercy next time. No one dared breathe. I opened the door and stepped into the night, never looking back. Behind me, I heard Carol's sobs, Douglas pounding the table, and Jackson repeating, Why did it come to this? I pulled my coat tight over my belly. Hope kicked hard, strong, certain, urging me toward the future. I walked away from the garden house, leaving behind a shattered Sterling family, and knowing everything that collapsed tonight was long overdue. I'd barely stepped onto my own porch when I heard frantic footsteps crunching through the snow. Jackson! He rushed toward me, face pale, breath ragged, and, before I could unlock the door, he dropped to his knees. Ava, please, don't leave me. I messed up. I'm sorry. I can fix it. For you, for the baby. His voice cracked like a scene he thought would win me back. I stood still for a moment, then pulled out my phone and hit record. Jackson froze. What are you recording? Evidence of harassment, I said coldly. So the next time you show up at my door, I have proof. His face twisted, fear and shame. He scrambled to his feet, but didn't dare touch me. I unlocked the door and shut it behind me, leaving him in the cold, just like he'd left my heart for 10 years. Not long after, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Carol called. Douglas called. Jackson called. Then Carol again, then Jackson. I watched the screen light up with each call and blocked every number, no hesitation, no remorse. I thought, this is the first time in my life I've truly protected myself. The next morning, I called Detroit Gentle Movers, a professional moving service. 3 men arrived with boxes, tape, and dollies. Pack only the men's stuff. All of it goes to the garage. I pointed to each item. Jackson's shirts, golf shoes, Jessica's forgotten purse in the bedroom, every gift he bought with my money. One by one, without error. When the garage was full, I signed the final document Harrison had emailed, the divorce papers Jackson had signed last night. I photographed the signed copy, sent it to Jackson with a single message. You have 24 hours to clear everything. After that, I throw it out. No more, no less. No softness. I placed a hand on my belly. Hope kicked gently, as if agreeing. I looked around at my clean house and thought, my life just got half as heavy. But I didn't know. The other half would begin the next morning. Around 5:30 a.m., while making a cup of hot cocoa, a sharp pain shot down my spine and gripped my lower belly. I gripped the counter, my breath strung tight like a pulled wire. Hope, you're ready, aren't you? I called 911. Then Uber Health, the hospital's private transport service. Within 12 minutes, I was in the ER at Beaumont Hospital, Royal Oak, bright lights casting a new world onto the ceiling. A nurse asked if I wanted to call the father. I gently shook my head. The baby's father is no longer someone I allow in our lives. And as I expected, once the hospital updated their system, Jackson tried to drive over. But the restraining order Harrison filed the night before was already in effect. 2 security guards stood at the delivery wing. "Mr. Jackson, you're not allowed here. There's a restraining order. Please leave immediately." I heard muffled arguing in the hallway, then his footsteps fading, like a closing chapter. 2 hours later, drenched in sweat from labor, I heard the first cry. Loud, clear, piercing the darkness like an arrow. The nurse placed a tiny being on my chest. A pair of eyes cracked open, looking up at me, gripping my finger with her tiny hand. I cried, not from pain, but because for the first time in years, I was living my own life. "Welcome, Hope," I whispered. "Hope Martinis." I gave her my parents' name, the ones who had loved me with everything they had. Not the Sterlings, not the family that had abused my trust for a decade. Hope kicked lightly, as if to agree. That afternoon, Harrison visited the hospital. No flowers, no gifts, just a blue folder of legal documents. "Ava," he said gently, "the emergency divorce has been filed. With proof of embezzlement, property intrusion, and attempted fraud. The court will rule swiftly. Hope will grow up completely safe." I pulled the blanket over Hope, smiling. Tired, but at peace. "Thank you, Harrison. She deserves a life without shadows." 3 weeks later, as Hope turned 1 month old, I carried her into courtroom 4 of the Wayne County Courthouse. On the way there, Detroit's winter wind still cut through the streets, but it no longer touched me. Harrison walked beside me, holding the final case file. Thick enough to tip a verdict just by its weight alone. Jackson sat on the defendant's bench. Thinner, hollow-eyed, avoiding my gaze, Carol and Douglas didn't dare appear at this public hearing. Judge Reed glanced at the nearly 400-page dossier, then at me, a mother cradling her newborn child. He struck his gavel once, his voice firm and echoing. "The court finds the defendant, Jackson Sterling, embezzled funds from the Detroit Animal Care and Control Shelter via a fictitious organization." Jackson bowed his head, hands clenched tightly. "The defendant is ordered to repay all misappropriated funds from the past 5 years, including interest and penalties." Harrison gave a slight nod, as if confirming the court had seen what it needed. The defendant Sterling is stripped of all inheritance rights from the plaintiff, Ava Martinez. I gently squeezed Hope's tiny hand. She hiccuped softly, then slept again, as if the world could no longer reach her. The judge continued. "Regarding custody, the plaintiff Ava Martinez is granted full custody of the child. The defendant is granted supervised visitation only." Jackson looked up for the first time, his bloodshot eyes searching for protest but finding no ground. "The defendant must pay child support for 18 years, at the maximum amount allowed by Michigan law." Silence fell over the room. Not a breath stirred. Then the judge closed the file and delivered the final line, as decisive as a period. "Judgment is effective immediately." Harrison turned to me with a gentle smile. "Ava, you've won. Not the kind of triumph that boasts, but the kind claimed by someone who walked through darkness alone and now stood tall for her child." I looked down at Hope. Her tiny lashes fluttered. Her hand grasped my shirt. I whispered, "I kept my promise. Everything will be safe for you from today." Outside the courthouse windows, snow flurried gently, but inside me, winter had ended. I stepped out of court, holding Hope wrapped in soft wool. Harrison headed to the parking lot, leaving me a rare moment of stillness. Across the way, Jackson stood alone. No lawyer, no family, just 2 empty hands shaking in the cold. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but stopped when he saw Hope curled in my arms. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. No more words were needed. 3 weeks later, Detroit plunged into a deep freeze. In an email from Harrison, a note read, "Court-ordered update. Current status of defendant Sterling." I opened the attachment. Jackson was now living in a rundown apartment in Brightmoor, West Detroit, the kind of place locals call where winter bites into your bones. A room barely 400 square feet, walls blotched with mold, warped wood flooring, an old heater wheezing barely enough warmth for cold hands. He slept on a $40 foldable bed bought off Facebook Marketplace. The fridge held only discount sandwiches and cheap milk, and on the kitchen table leg, I saw it clearly, Jessica's designer handbag bought with stolen funds, a relic of collapse. Jackson's new job was no better, blacklisted for embezzlement and fraud. No reputable company would hire him. Eventually, he took a night shift at the Tim Hortons near 8 Mile, faded uniform, cap hiding his unkempt hair. He poured coffee for customers, hands trembling from the broken heater. One regular joked, "Saw you on Fox News last week. Now you're pouring my coffee?" Jackson gave a twisted smile, like a man trying to swallow the last of his pride. "And Jessica?" Harrison sent a short text. Jessica left Detroit. No trace, no contact with Jackson. She disappeared just as people like her always do, built on fake glamour, vanishing like mist when there's no one left to cling to. Meanwhile, my life was moving in the opposite direction. Paw and Heart received a full recovery grant from the embezzled funds, returned by court order to the rightful city fund. With that, I opened 2 new clinics in Midtown and Ferndale. The Detroit Animal Care and Control Shelter, the foundation I've protected my whole life, added 2 new rescue facilities, sheltering hundreds more dogs and cats. What Jackson destroyed, I rebuilt into good. I stood in my new clinic, Hope in a small crib beside me, her eyes as clear as honey. I looked at her and thought, you don't need a perfect father, you just need a mother strong enough to stand against what's wrong. And in that moment, I knew. Jackson's journey was one of collapse. Mine was of rebirth. The days that followed moved to a rhythm I had never known. No shouting, no empty promises, no fear of checking someone else's phone for truth. Only light, the smell of fresh paint, and the quiet breathing of hope. I began renovating the house. For the first time in years, it felt truly mine. The living room now glowed in light tones, with cream curtains and warm yellow bulbs, none of the cold blue Jackson used to like. Hope's room. I spent a whole afternoon choosing the right shade of blush pink, the one my mother once said, "This color suits hearts that are made to love." I hung a few small frames on the wall. Hope wrapped in her wool blanket, me holding her outside the clinic, her tiny feet a week old each evening as Detroit lit up. I rocked Hope to sleep in my old wooden chair. She lay in my arms, breathing warm and steady. And every night I whispered, "You'll grow up in truth. No one will lie to you. No one will use you as a bargaining chip. You'll live in light, just like your name, Hope." She stirred, her tiny hand gripping my finger. As if she agreed, one weekend morning, I was in a pet store holding Hope when my phone buzzed. Harrison had sent a link. Detroit Free Press, Spotlight of the Week. I opened it right at the top. A photo of me and Hope at the grand opening of the new Paw and Heart branch. The headline read, "A young woman turns pain into hope, saving thousands of abandoned lives in Detroit." I couldn't help but smile. Not a proud smile, but one of someone finally seen in a kinder light, not through the lens of her in-laws. Within 48 hours of the article, donations soared. Mothers brought their kids' old clothes to the shelter. Local businesses offered support. People sent thank you emails for saving strays through winter. I held Hope, standing before the donation board, the amount rising by the hour, and felt my chest lift as if it had never held pain. See that, Hope? The world still has good people, and I want you to grow up grateful for that. Under the neon light of our new clinic, Hope slept peacefully. And for the first time in years, I knew our lives had turned the page for good. 3 years later, early spring in Michigan. The air soft, the sun golden like melted honey. I held Hope, now 3, with soft curls and honey brown eyes. As we stepped into the tulip garden I'd planted behind our house, rows of flowers stretched in waves, red, yellow, purple, gently swaying in the breeze. Hope wriggled from my arms, laughing, "Mama, I want to run!" I set her down on the soft grass. Sunlight caught her hair, turning each strand into glowing threads. Spring wind whispered through the tulips. Like they were congratulating someone who had escaped a past life, I turned on my camera. Not for social media, not for anyone to watch, just to capture a moment I once thought I'd never reach. I looked straight into the lens, no shaking, no fear, no sadness. I may have lost a husband, lost a fake family, but I never lost myself, and I'll never lose my daughter. Hope ran over, grabbed my hand, tugging, "Mama, run with me!" I laughed a real laugh, light, wide, and shadowless. We ran through the tulips, petals brushing our legs, wind in our hair, Hope's laughter ringing in the clear afternoon. No one chasing, no one controlling, no one lying. Just the two of us. Small, but utterly free. I turned the camera toward the sky. Sunlight poured down, gilding the two shadows running through the garden. If Ava and Hope's story touched you, if it reminded you that you're not alone in reclaiming your worth, I hope you'll leave a like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'll share more stories. Deeper, truer, closer to the heart.